Hello, everybody. Thank you for watching and welcome to this video. My name is Eva. It's so great that you are here, and I'm today joined by the very, very amazing and beautiful Dorothy Rowe. Dorothy is a very amazing healer, and she has been working in that field for more than 45 years, which is really, really incredible. And she's also a friend, and I've been working with her. I received her healing, and yeah, it was absolutely incredible, and it was really needed. So thank you so much, Dorothy. I just want to share really quickly. So when I was pregnant with Serafina, so when I knew that I was pregnant, I had a session with you, and then a few weeks before giving birth, because I just wanted to clear everything that's possible so that Serafina can come into this world clear and, in the best possible way. And you definitely helped with that. So thank you so much, Dorothy, from the bottom of my heart, because everything went so smooth and effortless and joyful. And yeah, thank you so much for helping and for being here
You
today.
deserved it, Eva. You
Mm.
deserved it. You created a lot of that good yourself, really.
Mm. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for being here today. And yeah, I thought let's talk a little bit about babies because it's such an
Yes.
interesting topic.
Yes.
And I just want to know, because also in my healing work, I see that from a childhood on, we start collecting these low vibrational energies in our system. So this is just how I call them. And how can we, as young parents, prevent? Um, can we do something about it? And if yes, what is your point of view on that? And also, older children. Some people have older children, so I'm not talking about babies, but maybe we'd start with babies. So yeah, that would be really, I would be so interested. So
Thank you for this
yeah.
question. Thank you. Um, the healing work that we do, Eva and I have just been talking about our healing work together before we started this podcast. And the healing work that we do happens outside the constraints of space and time. So ultimately, it's the byproduct or the effect of the individual consciousness folding in on its own nature. As parents, we support the children to have as high consciousness as possible, because ultimately it's going to rest on as a responsibility on their shoulders to live a life that allows them to work the field of their consciousness to interact with their own nature and support themselves in all of those situations and circumstances as young people when the nervous system wasn't evolved enough to be able to make a full assessment of their experience. So as adults, what we do is we actually comprehend the experience that the child is having from a fuller level of wisdom and perspective than they can possibly have. Children's nervous systems aren't developed yet. And they have to go through these periods, like from age 2 to 7. They go through something called neural exuberance, where they're making something. This is what I learned in a class on the brain, that they're making something like 2 million neural connections a second.
Oh,
A
wow.
second. It's crazy. That starts around toddler age, right? They start walking and moving and talking, and that's language develops and all that. And that type of ebullient expression of the nervous system is, from the grown-ups point of view, we look at them and we see their potential. We see this phenomenal potential in the child because their little brains and their little nervous systems are just like they're just like exploding practically, and they pick up so much information and they know so much about not just what's happening at the gross material level of creation, but everything that's happening down in the subtle levels as well. It's all just like wide open for them.
Yeah, and I have a question right away. So do you think
Yes.
do you think babies have emotions like we do? Because I'm not seeing them in the same way. I'm seeing them differently. I just want to know what's your take on that?
When people are really little, they're absolutely feeling And I think in some ways, because they're so small and because their nervous systems, their physiologies haven't accrued a lot of stress, they actually experience and feel things more richly and more deeply than we do. But their ability to understand what they experience or to express it is truncated. It's small.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what we have as adults is especially as we go through the sort of enculturation, right? We go through our culture and we kind of learn, how do we communicate, especially how do we communicate abstract experiences and concepts to others. We become much better at expressing that to others. But when children are little, they don't know how to express it. And because they don't know how to express it to themselves. And you don't really own something until you can express it to yourself. And that's one of the values of using language as an implement to allow us to understand our reality, is that we employ our linguistic skills in order to give shape to experiences that are deeper than language.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful, right? It's like this
Mm-hmm.
amazing thing that we do. But children, they don't even learn to like read and write usually until they're a little older. So yes, the experience, I would say, is more rich. It's more like they're experiencing the detail of it more than a lot of people are as adults, because we get some scar tissue and we tend to, decide that there's certain, a lot of times people grow up and they'll become in denial about certain things. You go through some emotional experience as a child that was really overwhelming, and then it's like, well, I didn't know how to deal with it then, so I'm just going to like shove that to the background somewhere, and I'm just not even going to deal with it,
Yeah.
when I get to be bigger. And so,
And at what age do you think this starts, the shoving into the background or around,
it starts the first time the experience overwhelms the nervous system, and that can be different for different people.
Mm-hmm.
So part of the story is that the nervous system itself just has to grow, and it takes time. The first age 2 to 7 is this neural exuberance that I described, where lots of neural connections are being made. But then it's like the nervous system is like a matted mess, kind of. It's like a matted mess. And then at about age 7, there's a shift in the functioning, and there's also a hormonal shift that correlates with that, where the child starts to prune away the pieces that it doesn't need, and the pieces that it does need that are left get a thick coating of fat around them. It's called myelination, because myelin is a kind of a fatty substance that goes around whatever nerves are held and are going to remain with them, like as the main branches of the tree as they're growing up to be older. And that pruning and myelination process goes on until about age 24, 25. And it starts at the back of the head,
I have to ask,
and it comes forward like that. So this is the last part to get myelin. Yes.
Okay, but just for my understanding, so that means before the age of then when this starts, I forgot what you said, I think 2, they just pick up everything, or between 2 and 7, they pick up everything they basically are exposed to. And then from 7 onward, they start only using what they basically need from all of these exposure
Yes.
energies. Okay.
Yes.
All right. That's
Yes.
interesting.
Yes.
And what's with all those other energies that they are not using? Like, what's happening with them?
It's a great question. The nervous system cultivates itself to basically create blind spots. Blank spots. There are things that as human beings, we end up not really we don't know. We only have 5 senses. We don't have infinite senses. We just have 5 senses. So there's certain things at the surface level of expression of ourselves as beings that we're only taking in a little slice of reality up here at the surface, just a little slice. At the deeper levels of being, we experience totality. But the translation of that experience of totality to the surface must become specified in order for us to exist as human beings in this creation that we've created. Now, we were talking before we went live, we were talking a little bit about collective function and how we are still learning a lot of things as a field of humanity. We are learning a lot of things. And part of that story is that the culture also has to change in order to accommodate holding on to some of the more beautiful and divine, you could say, divine expressions of that finer level of creation. For example, in ancient societies, because my background's sort of Vedic, there are words for things that we don't have in our culture. Like there's a word ritam, which means to basically know absolute truth, to know all truth. Ritam, and we don't have that word in our culture. Ritambara pragyam. And there's another one called Jyoti Mati pragyam, which it means to be able to know anything specific that you need to know. And we don't have that word in our culture either. So you have to think, well, if there was a culture that had words like that, then that meant that the whole culture, like everybody lived on such a level of, you could say, vibration or condition of integrated wholeness or consciousness, that they had to have words like that in their culture in order for everyone to get along and to get by, because they had to talk about those things. They had to talk about stuff like that. And there are a lot of records. And that's why I was mentioning earlier also this lovely healer from the past century named Stylianos. They called him Dascalis because Dascalis just means teacher. So he was called Dascalis. But, he had a complete full recount of all past lives with every detail. His names, his parents, everybody he knew, everywhere he went, all the names of cities, everything. And he could go back and check on all of that stuff. And he recounted experiences from past incarnations where people just, as a standard, happen to have a lot more control over the way their consciousness interacted with their material world in order to produce various effects. And we still have signs of that in our world today, because there are stone structures all over the earth that today, with today's technology, we cannot reproduce. There are stones in places in the Middle East and in Egypt, obviously, and also all around the Mediterranean, stone structures where the base stone weighs something like, I saw a picture of this one temple that was built on top of other temples, but the base stones are like 60 tons. We can't move those. We can't move those with today's technology, but they were doing that back then. They figured it out. They figured it out.
So you mean they had access to a different information of their being than we have, basically? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
How can we
and
get
it was
there,
what they
Dorothy?
needed. They
Because
needed that
I
back
want to
then.
have access.
I know. I know. We all
do you know? Can you share?
Yeah, well, the thing is, we're moving in that direction. But what happened is the access that they had back then, obviously, on some level, must have been corrupted, because then it was lost, right? The knowledge was lost to time. And so what's happening now is, at a very large collective level of our creation, we're exploring, well, what does it take? What other qualities or characteristics of the human nature are required to be developed in order to be able to have that knowledge and not lose it over the course of time? And so we're in a phase of, this is my opinion, my personal opinion, but we're in a phase of human evolution at a collective level right now, where we're having to become much more dedicated to the highest truth, which is why your website is so beautiful, and it's such a beautiful gift to our world. May you have millions and millions of subscribers to your website, dear Eva, because
hopefully one day.
Yeah. Do you want to tell people a little bit about that for just a second, so they know what I'm referring, if they're new to this? Yeah,
if they're new to this. So I mean, you talked about the highest truth. So the transmission I work with that comes through contains the information of the highest truth, and the highest truth is everything that exists. And the transmission comes from outside of creation, but it contains everything in creation. And if people are connected, so they can be connected via website, so it doesn't need me as a channel. So they just go on the website and they click a button and then they connect it and the transmission comes in and it pulls them towards their personal highest truth. So whatever that means for their unique life experience, and everything that's not of the highest truth can start falling away, or they see it or they're conscious of it, and then it can go. Then it neutralizes the system, and then from there people are pulled towards their personal highest truth. So opportunities are opening up, possibilities, also the whole potential, right? Everybody has their potential that's already there in place, but it's just not seen. And with that, they also like can access that potential, what they need in the present moment. So it's always about the present moment. It's not seeing about the whole range. So they can access that as well, and then it pulls them towards their true nature. This is what the transmission is doing. Yeah, and I hope my highest truth is to find one of those ancient abilities again, because I'm so curious, like this embodiment stuff where, with the consciousness, there is like an end to that, and that's very interesting and fine. But then what's after that? What's more? Like the embodiment of the divine, but what abilities are coming with that, and what openings? And also the system is fully changing. I see this more and more in my work. So like last time it was so interesting. It came up basically a new kind of humans is created, just a very high vibrational human, and all the old baggage. So we are the generation that can like get rid of the old baggage. This is our part in this, and the new generation can start fresh. And this is what I see in Serafina as well. So I'm doing the work, then she doesn't get my stuff, and then she can go from there. Yeah, so this is
She
basically
wants some of your stuff, Eva. She
yeah,
does.
I mean, maybe some.
She wants all the good stuff. She
Yeah.
wants you to share the good stuff with her.
Yeah, I mean, something
Yeah.
you said that was so interesting. You said that the babies share a level of consciousness with the mother for a while, and then what happens then? So and
Yeah,
when
and
and
let me
what?
see if I can find that video. It was a short that I saw on
Yeah, but in one of our sessions, you mentioned that you said the baby shares the consciousness of the mother. Um, and yeah, I would be just so interested. And
oh
do
yeah,
they
well,
like
I could
they
reiterate
probably
that.
stay? Do they stay there if things are going right? It's like if the highest truth happens for them, or is it for every baby closing down again and then they start again from a different place? I don't know. So, but what's your take on that? Do you know?
The heart of the mother and the baby are always connected. There's so many points that you just covered. I wanted to kind of touch on all of them.
Okay.
So, in fact, we're always connected to all the people that we love. The deeper there's a love connection, the more the evolution of each person blesses and benefits the other people in their circles. And that happens both from the level of the heart, like through bloodlines, but it and also friends, obviously, but also just people in your near vicinity, your neighbors. If you're holding a very high state of consciousness in your space and in your house, your neighbors also benefit from that.
Mm.
But I wanted to say, your question was, oh, I want to go back and I want to get those keys. I want to get those pieces of knowledge. And I agree with you that the physiology is changing and that we are consciously, intentionally changing our physiologies by focusing our awareness on refining and facilitating the way in which awareness transforms the nervous system, which is the vehicle of awareness, right? So how do you've got awareness and consciousness, which is evolving, and then you've got the instrument or the vehicle. And awareness can turn around onto the vehicle and can cause the vehicle to become a certain shape. It's like the evolution of the car, right? When cars were first invented, it was like this great thing. You didn't need horses anymore, but they were a little rickety and they weren't completely refined, right? Like they hadn't completely developed. But we've been on this path now for all these years hearkening back to this point that I've been doing this for many decades. And just as a clarification on that, I haven't had my sign out and charging money and people coming to me for all these decades. That didn't really start until the 2000s. That started in the 2000s for me. Back 40 years ago, 45 years ago, I was doing this work, but it was completely undercover. It was completely, just I wasn't given a choice, because as a child, I was told I have to do this. And as a child, I was like, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to deal with sick people. I just want to be happy. And so I was running away from it for a really long time. But then in my 20s, I started just being easy with it happening all the time with people, again, like the thing with the neighbors, a little bit like that the consciousness was raising here. And I had lucid dream and sleep. So I was working with people in dream and sleep time. And changes were happening, and they were good changes for my bloodlines, good changes for all that. And I could see the mechanics. I was watching the mechanics of how consciousness does it, and how the divine within each person is actually the key for their fastest evolution and healing and well-being. So coming back to the nervous system now and awareness, how does awareness impact its own physical structure, the vehicle, in such a way that the intimacy of the connection between the individual and the divine is most robust, is most complete, and most full and whole? So yes, one of the things as a mother you can do is talk to your children about God. Let them know that there is a relationship that they have with and now some people who are listening, maybe they object to this. I don't know, because when you start talking about, then all of a sudden it becomes organized religion. And I'm not so sure how everybody feels about organized religion, which is fine. Much love and respect to everyone for whatever their relationship is with organized religion, because we all have a little bit of a different relationship with that. But it's good for children, little children, to be acknowledged and validated for the subtler experiences that they have. When I was a little girl, I had all kinds of subtle experience. I saw beings, and I saw angels, and I saw the saints, and I saw God, and I saw this stuff. And I'd go to my mom and I'd say, Mom, I saw this and I saw that. Like I'm having these experiences. And she would just she would just be like, what would you like for dinner? I mean, I don't mean to, speak it. My mother was lovely, but
But it probably wasn't her experience. Was it her experience, or was she?
It wasn't her
of course,
experience,
yeah.
right?
Then, yeah.
And so she had nothing. She couldn't say anything. And again, she didn't have the language in order to go in and like extract what I was saying as a little child. And I didn't have the language either. So like there wasn't a lot of support from that level. So that definitely is something that parents can do, is be willing to get into that field with the kids and talk about what their experience is and what's going on with them. And I still do that with my adult children. And it is so healing, and it is so useful for everyone.
Beautiful.
So,
wow. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess for like people who are meditating, because I think a lot of people who are watching this are meditating regularly, also sharing about that, right? And talking, because then it's normal.
And also we
And
need to understand it better. The ancients understood it better than we do today. Hence the whole mass of Vedic literature that's just all about that. And so, they wrote encyclopedias about it, And today there's very little. When I was young, the word transcending wasn't even a thing. It wasn't even a word. It didn't have meaning to the Western world. If you said, oh, I just had a transcendental experience, or I just transcended thought, people would be like, what? Like, that's not real, So it's good to have words. It's good to give voice to it, because that actually is one of the fundamental means by which we restructure our nervous systems, our brains. When we have words and ideas and we can make thoughts out of stuff, it actually causes especially up in the prefrontal cortex area, it causes good changes in that part of the brain.
Yeah, I mean, when we have, I mean, it's very obvious when we have positive thoughts about something and strong in it, like thoughts that strengthen something in us, like positive ones, we also feel better. So thoughts, even though it's like, I mean, from how I see this, from a whole system point of view, thoughts are probably like 20% of the system, and the rest is like 80%. But so energetically, but the thoughts still have a lot of influence, more than the system, because people, of course, I mean, our society is just more connected to the thoughts than to the system yet. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is why,
Yeah, and also it's
yeah.
kind of like a dialogue, right?
Mm.
Is it like a dialogue? Because you have the thoughts on the surface and they inform the feelings, and the feelings go back and cause some adaptation and changes the underlying context in which the thoughts and feelings come up. But that underlying context is always there. It's like the gift that you give on your website. You create a kind of a context or a space for each person to reside in, so that you offer it, they can accept as they wish or whatever. But you create this context for them, and the context is essentially all powerful regarding the type of manifestation that can then emerge from that context. So it's like a loop. It's like a self-referral loop going on in the field of consciousness, where the denser, more gross level thinking and feeling goes down, and it informs the context, and it helps to shape that context to be a little bit more robust and a little bit more life supporting. And we could say better integrated with the relationship between individuality and divinity, better integrated. And then that context will guide all the thoughts and all the feelings, including it shapes the relative material level of creation too. And it causes us to be at a certain place at a certain time and to interact with people in certain ways and all that.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah.
does everything. What jumps up for you, it jumps out of the world to you, is also attracted to you because that initial underlying context is like a magnet that draws certain types of experiences that validate and bring some impressions that, kind of, yeah, they help fill in gaps.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's basically what you do with your work and what I do with my work. So we have the energies, they come in, and then we, by speaking it out, by sharing it, we kind of give it a context. So it's exactly what you're talking about. So we give it a little shape, and then the healing can happen in that, because the attention also of the receiver is being guided into that direction, and we also kind of guide it into that direction, because
Exactly.
otherwise it's just
Exactly.
it's just there. It's like all over the place. But with directing it a little bit, a lot faster healing, or a lot more can happen. Yeah, I totally see it the same way. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I expect that you probably do the same as me, but one of the main principles when I'm working one-on-one with people is we're looking for the seed of the suffering, whatever is like the most fundamental, the deepest, most basic, like core piece of that. And then getting into that sort of contextual field that's at the more foundational level of matter manifestation. And then how can that contextual field shift a little bit so that that seed is able to be resolved and released from the system?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do it the same way. I just, call it, so it's the emotions. So just the core emotions of things, so
Yeah.
that there is the
Yeah.
story on top. And I just work with
Yeah.
the emotion and release the emotion of the
Yes.
system.
Yes.
And this is, so my understanding is, and what the energy basically shares, so how I read this, is that we pile up stuff all our lifetimes, and I always get the information it's around 3 years. So this is, I was just curious from when on you see this. So around 3 years, energy start getting stuck. So this is basically how I understand it. And from them on, it just gets stuck over and over again, different energies, and we pile up things until we start the healing process, and like, just clear all these things again, so that we have a clear system eventually, and underlaying there is the true nature, and then we can live from there, right? So it's very simple.
There's a critical point that most children go through around age 3. And I don't think that it's a coincidence that in centuries past, it was less common for children to make it through the early years of their lives, because what happens is they come from the field of being, and they come from the divine, right? From the heart of God, you could say they come. And they have to make a choice or a decision at some time around 2 or 3, they that they're going to have to invest themselves in the limitations and boundaries imposed on them by this world in
Mm-hmm.
order to be a functional member of our society. And it's a hard decision. And what I found, I remember those times in this lifetime when I tried to resist it. I talked to my little friends and I was like, guys, we don't have to do this. We don't have to give in to the limitations and boundaries. We can live in a more like holistic manner. And they all turned on me. I remember they turned on me, especially the little bit older ones, the ones who are like getting towards like 8, 9, 10, that age. And they weren't having it. They weren't having it. They're like, if you're going to believe in angels and fairies and devas and gods and stuff like that, and you're going to try to talk about that stuff to us, then we are going to ridicule you and we are going to isolate you and we are not going to let you in our social circles. And so it's hard because I've seen again and again children go through a kind of a heart grief at that point because they have to give up their connection to that other level, all those higher realms of creation and all that, richness, all the richness and goodness that's in that field of creation. They have to let some of it go in order to fit in. Otherwise, they're going to always be the odd man out. They're always going to find themselves socially distanced from other people. And it's sad, but like for some reason, that level of investment then drives them to make the sacrifices that they need to make to be part of our culture and our society. And this comes to me because there was a recent event in my area that was a very, very tragic, very, very tragic event. I won't go into great detail because I want to, protect the family involved, but it was terrible. And I had to, because the pain of it came to my door and I had to help. I was asked to help people. I looked at this pattern, and I really appreciate you bringing this up, Eva, because this is very much at the forefront of what I'm looking at right now. But it's as if what happens, the child starts out and when people are little, everything works great. Basically, their little bodies and their little nervous systems and everything, they don't have a lot of stress, right? So they enjoy basically good health and just kind of a natural, pure attunement to the creator, and their relationship with God is beautiful. Like, it doesn't even say somewhere, I'm not a Bible expert, but somewhere in the Bible it says something like the angels watch out for children and fools or something. There's some statement like that in the Bible, because it's like they're just lucky. They're lucky and they're blessed and they're attuned with natural law, and they just innocently, you could say intuitively or instinctually just do the right thing. They know it's right. They kind of feel it, they're feeling their way through. But the nervous system hasn't evolved and developed yet. And they don't appreciate the level of attunement until they really understand it. And we as human beings, it seems like this is a pattern to me. We don't seem to understand it and fully appreciate it until we a little bit lose it. We start losing that connection a little bit. And then we're like, oh, it feels better to be really healthy. I think I need to change my diet, or just things like that, like little things. We become wise. Like, we have to go through this maturation process. We become wiser. And when you get through the maturation process, then you regain a lot of the simplicity and the innocence and the sweetness and the beauty and the goodness and the charitability and compassion and alignment with natural law. But knowing it, that you are aligned with natural law, it's intentional, and it's the heart and mind act decisively. It's not just that, oh, well, I'm kind of instinctually doing the right thing at the right time and I don't understand it. It's like, I'm here with this because I know, because this isn't a joke. Human life isn't a joke. Human life, each soul is infinitely valuable, infinitely precious, because we have the ability with our awareness to move our awareness through the entire spectrum of human experience and to transform the darkness to light anywhere and everywhere, anywhere our awareness goes.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I mean, that was very, very interesting what you shared, really. And I mean, I don't know what's going to happen when, Serafina's going to school and, there are other children and they have to she has to let go of, her boundless being. I mean, I kind of already, so my approach is she's infinite, right? And she knows that. but I explained to her that she's having a human experience and things are coming with that. For example, dressing, she has a body and she needs to be dressed because she doesn't like that. And so I'm just always explaining to her because I know she doesn't understand it intellectually, but her beingness understands it, because this is what I'm working with anyways with people, right? So
Yes.
with their beingness, the energy field. And so I'm just explaining things to her that this is just part of the human experience and just an example. And it seems like she understands, and we communicate in that
She
way.
understands.
Yeah. And we're communicating in that way, and that's, yeah, very, very interesting. But I
It's good
know
when you're talking to her.
I have to set boundaries. That's very important because I want her to be a part of this society and live a normal human life, and it's very important, to guide. This is why we're here for as parents. So this is so. I think, and I just that came to me today, why maybe I will see then in a few years, but just from my point of view, I mean, I've been only a parent for 3 months, so you know what I mean? But um, why parents these days allow their children everything and don't set boundaries. And I just, like, what came to me is really that they are damaged from that, or they know that, they have inner child stuff there going on and they need to do healing work, but they are not looking at their stuff and doing their healing work. But again, they projecting it to their child and
Right.
say, okay, I'm not setting any boundaries because I received them and they weren't good for me. And what would be better is if people would actually heal their own system and set
Right.
healthy boundaries. So this is
Absolutely.
this is what came to me today.
The
Yeah.
fact is, children don't feel safe in a world without some boundaries.
Mm.
When they get up, they start getting up into 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like that. If there aren't boundaries, then they live in a chaotic field. The field becomes very chaotic with it. You need boundaries. It's like walls. You need walls in your house. If you don't have walls in your house, then you don't have a house, and then you're exposed to the elements. So, but parents have to decide what boundaries and how and when to impose them, and when is it appropriate to put a boundary on a child, and when is it appropriate to give them some freedom to do what they think they want to do, and how do you help them evolve and develop the skill sets to move their intention through this world against the resistance created by the boundaries of the world. Because the world's going to give them boundaries. If the parents don't give them boundaries, teachers will give them boundaries, employers will give them boundaries, their friends will give them boundaries. So they're going to get boundaries. But if they get the boundaries from their parents who adore them and know them intimately, those boundaries will come in a way that is very appropriate and age appropriate and temperamentally appropriate for them, that they can just get them and employ them, and it doesn't overwhelm their systems. The problem is when the nervous system becomes overwhelmed by some experience, and sometimes that's the imposition of a boundary. And because the nervous system becomes overwhelmed, it becomes difficult for the individual to make sense of that experience. And when they can't make sense of it, then it's like it creates a kind of a blockage, and it becomes a place internally where they're not able to move easily or comfortably. Yeah, boundaries and limitations. So usually it starts in at about, usually when children are really little, it's easy to keep them within boundaries. Like when they're about 2, up until around 2, if they pick up something that's dangerous for them, you just take it out of their hands and you put something else in that's soft and not dangerous for them, and they hardly notice. They're like, oh, I'm holding this. Oh, now I'm holding this. Like they don't even notice it's not a problem. But somewhere around 2, 3, 4, like that, they start to notice a little bit more, and but they're still okay, and they're still very, especially if the boundaries are given with love, right? They're still very accepting of the boundaries. But around age 4, and I'm not like a child expert or anything, this is just from my own experience raising, they start to feel separate, a little separate. It's when they make that decision, oh, I have to let go of all that connection that I had to the divine, and I have to be a little more invested in this world of separations and boundaries and limitations, they start to feel separate from other people and stuff. And they, up till then, you notice how Serafina, she's so close to you. It's almost like she's part of you.
Mm.
It feels like she feels like, oh, I'm just Eva's arm. I'm just her heart. Oh, I'm sitting here on Eva's chest. And I'm just her heart. I'm just Eva's heart, right? But mama's heart. But when they realize that they're separate, then they think, well, I wonder if the world tells me there's a boundary there. Well, just how hard is that? How hard is that boundary? How firm is that boundary? And what would it take to move that boundary? So they start working on moving boundaries. And then around age 4, they come across a boundary that they can't move. Just something that it's like, there's certain things like you have to go to school and you have to wear clothes when you go to school. And there's no getting around it.
Yeah.
There's no, you can't push that mountain. That's a mountain, you can't push it. And they start really exploring, well, like, just how hard can I push? It's like a little chicken trying to work its way out of the eggshell, like, because they have to do that, it makes them strong so they can be strong chickens when they get bigger. They have to figure out, like, what can I use? What tools do I have? And that's a really good time to encourage children to use tools that are socially acceptable, right? You can bargain with me. We can look together at this situation. Like, I remember one point, the child was there and they wanted to do art and they wanted to do the paint, but it was a white carpet. And it's like, I didn't want the paint on the white carpet. And so went into a negotiation, and we were able to negotiate so that they could take the painting outside, or we could set them up in another part of the house that didn't have the white carpet. So then the painting is fine, but also the white carpet is fine. Like that type of thing. You have to, like, say, okay, I'm pushed on this boundary and it didn't move for me. Now what do I do? And if the answer is I look more deeply and I figure out what's the underlying energy behind that boundary, then I can sort of navigate my way through getting my desire fulfilled without violating somebody else's needs as well. Something like that. But the first response is usually to cry when they're little, because before they had speech, before they had language, if they wanted something, they just went, ah, and then they got what they wanted. And so that's like the default mechanism is, I'm just going to cry, or I'm just going to lose my temper, or I'm going to have a little fit or something, And so it's important for the parents to like recognize when that clicks in and say, okay, now my little person is ready to start negotiating and thinking more deeply about things. And and explain to them, you have to ask nicely. And if you think that your anger is going to get you that thing, then you're definitely not going to get it. Then it goes away for good. Because you don't want to raise a child who goes into adulthood who thinks that they get what they want just by blasting their energy at everybody, anger at everybody, because that's just it's not in a socially acceptable, effective way.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. But just the thing is, so when I work on people's energy fields, it's like when the system is open and we experience an emotion, we are in the present moment with this emotion and we handle it in whichever way we learn to. So that's totally fine. And then the emotion leaves the system fully. So this is the ideal way. So it doesn't get stuck.
Yes.
And this happens, of course, with babies, right? Because they can cry and then a second later they smile, So their system works in the optimum way. And then this starts basically shutting down. And I just see it when the energy start getting stuck, more and more gets stuck. So the system gets more polluted, or there's just more stuff in there. And then the openness kind of closes. So it starts closing down. And then we hold on to emotions and we're not processing them fully. So I guess but that's a really hard part, because on the one hand, right, trying to have a child that can also be around, like in society, navigate around society in a very normal way, so that the child doesn't get like a meltdown in the supermarket all the time, but also helping the child to process their emotions in the best possible way. So that's going to be very interesting, because so that the system doesn't close down, and maybe it has to close down, maybe this is just how it is, I don't know. And then if there is interest, they can reopen it, but it would be better to, of course, have it stay open, right?
Yeah.
To have the
openness. Yeah, I
openness.
mean, one of the things that children can do from an early age is, if they're starting to feel a big emotion, big emotions that are really intense, you can help them direct their awareness to the physical body, because almost always there's an anchor somewhere in the physiology, and get the awareness into, and sometimes when they shift their awareness to like, well, where is this coming from? Because it can come from a, like, I remember my granddaughter with the parents finally figured it out, but she often would be a little bit uncomfortable or grouchy. She'd be having a hard time before she had a bowel movement, because it was like she didn't understand the feeling of it, right? And it felt kind of thick and heavy, and like something was going and she didn't know what it was. And so she would have some emotions that were uneasy, and she doesn't want to eat something, and she's rejecting. They're trying to figure out how to help her feel better, right? And then they realized, oh, she needs to go sit on the potty, like that's what she needs to do, right? And so when they kind of like figured that out, then they're quicker now, because they kind of know the telltale signs when something like that's coming up. But so part of it can be physiological. If there are feelings and emotions that are rising to the surface, they often will have anchors in the body, which is where the whole concept of healing through consciousness, healing the body through consciousness, kind of emerges from that. However, if the child gets in the habit of feeling the emotion, but rather than being gripped by the emotion, saying, well, where is it coming from? They'll also start to find themselves looking at deeper levels of consciousness itself and see, well, is this something that I carried with me from a past incarnation? Or is this, because it might not be on the physical body, right? Like I gave the example of my granddaughter, it's a physical body thing, but it can be sometimes the seeds of imbalance or illness are coming from something far more abstract. And it kind of gets them early on looking into the deeper level, like, well, I'm feeling angry, but what's under the anger? What's behind that anger? And for example, mostly anger comes up when the truth is obscured. So if you're experiencing anger and you're thinking, I just feel, and you can step a little bit back from it, witness it a little bit. And that's what also, if you're working with a client, of course, that kind of happens naturally, right? Because we're always going to be a little bit witnessing our clients' emotions, but to step back and go, yeah, but what is that piece of your truth that was denied or has gone unrecognized or unappreciated? What is that piece that's not being appreciated fully, that is trying to get out to the surface? And because it keeps trying to get out and it keeps hitting a boundary, then that creates kind of like a friction, and it can translate as the emotion of anger. So, and why does it translate as the emotion of anger? Because anger is very kind of sharp, and it's more of one of the more powerful. If it builds up, it can be one of the more powerful emotions, has enough energy behind it to bust through a boundary, to bust through, to break through, or to disassemble whatever that thing is that's kind of covered up that truth that needed to come to the surface. And because truth by its nature is divine, then we always want it to come through, the even if it's an uncomfortable truth, we want it to come through because it is the expression of God in the material field of creation. And God wants that, and nature wants that, the whole universe wants it, and we want it. So if it's blocked, it makes us uncomfortable.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting example you brought up because so Serafina had a time when she was crying a lot and I didn't know why. And I had somebody looking into that because, I sometimes when you're really close to the situation, you just
Right.
don't get it. And then she said, yeah, it's very hard for her to understand that she has a body. And when she's like drinking the milk, and then, there's this heavy feeling and it makes like it gets heavy in the belly. And then, she has to get it out there again as well. And this is just so unfamiliar for her. And she doesn't know what it's all about. And this is why she's crying so much. And then this is when I basically started telling her about everything around here, how things are happening on the human level, so that she
Perfect.
just
It's
knows.
perfect, Eva.
Yeah.
It's perfect because she understands what you say, but more like through telepathy. Like
Mhm.
there isn't that point where she's 3 months where she's connecting the actual words that you're speaking to the meaning behind them, but she gets the meaning.
Yeah.
And so it's so
Yeah,
good.
yeah, and then I just told her, okay, we have a human body, so we have to feed it to have energy to movement and grow and stuff like that. And I just told her, and by drinking the milk that she's getting, and now she needs to digest it, and what she doesn't need comes out again in the back, on the backside, and it stopped then. And I had a few of these experiences
She's
where
so
she had
smart. She's so
meltdowns.
smart.
Yeah, and then
Oh,
and
you're in
then
so
it
much
just
trouble.
stopped. It just stopped when I figured out why, and when I explained to her, and then it stopped. I mean, it will be
Yeah.
new things coming up all the time,
She's
right? But it's
smart,
so
Eva.
fascinating. Yeah.
Watch out.
Yeah.
Watch out, mama, because she's going to have you just jumping. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean your point about new physiologies coming through, and physiologies that have the potential to evolve more in the course of a single lifetime than what we've seen in the past.
Yeah. I think that's going to be very interesting.
We're going through a massive, massive transformation as a species.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, this is also, I think, I'm not sure if I shared in a recording or before, but this is what I'm seeing, that a new species is created now, and the transmission I'm working with, and of course you as well, and other people that are helping with that. And I guess the young ones, they already, like, their physiology is probably already a bit different than ours, right? They already
Yeah.
have a bit more with them already,
Yes,
which is so
yes,
cool.
yes.
So we can
And
learn
of
from
course,
them.
when you have a baby like Serafina, this isn't her first spiritual lifetime. She's worked on the whole spiritual thing so many lifetimes. So even when the body was evolving in the belly, she chose a mama who's doing all these beautiful transmissions and having experiences of totality, right? Higher states of consciousness, so that that body is already made to accommodate a very, very fast evolution on the level of
Mm.
consciousness.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Watch out.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
There
Yeah.
are best teachers. There are best
Mm.
teachers, Eva. They're
Yeah.
so
And you
lovely.
have three children of your own, right? Three beautiful children. Yeah. Yeah. And that was so, I just have to share it with people who are listening, because when I did the sessions with you, and then you were sharing about your children, there was like so much love present. It was crazy. And you were like, oh my God, they were so cute. And you remembered back how cute they were. And that was so sweet when you shared that. And when you don't have a child on your own yet, it's like, it's beautiful that you shared it, but I didn't really understand. And now I totally understand, because I see it every day. And yeah, that was so, I always had to think about you, or often when
Yeah.
I looked at her and I was like, oh my God, she's so cute. Because one time you mentioned, you mentioned to your husband in the evening that I think you were talking about one of your sons, that he was getting cuter every day and you can't handle it anymore. So that was so sweet. And I totally
My
get it.
poor
Yeah.
nervous system was on the edge of overwhelmed by the amount of
Mhm.
cuteness and hilariousness. They were so hilarious when the boys, when they were little. Oh my, I was laughing all the time. It was so funny. They were so
Yeah.
cute.
Oh my
But the
goodness.
other thing, yeah, I was thinking about how I have now one adult son locally. And when they were babies, they would sneeze. And I always thought their sneezes were so cute. They go, little sneeze. It was so cute. So now, of course, as an adult, he's got this like big, massive, he blows his enemies into the ocean when he sneezes, And, but I still, even then, when he sneezes, I have this immediate reaction in my body of, oh, that was so cute. I
Oh,
was like,
really? Oh my
still,
God. That's so fun.
it just got stuck in me that like just everything is so cute about them. He's like, it's like an adult man, and it's like, oh, he's so cute. I
But
mean, of course
that's so funny.
you
But I
can't
mean,
say
maybe
that.
maybe that has to do with what you mentioned before, that so you mentioned something, that part of the baby is in the mother's heart of the say, can you share this
Yes, I'm going to see if I can find the
mhm,
actual short that came
mhm,
from, because that was so fascinating. And I think I know where I can find it, and I'll send you the link. And you can even put the link under
mhm.
this
I will, yeah.
video
Mhm.
in YouTube, because I'm not really a doctor, but it was this beautiful video. It was a short, like 60 seconds, where this woman was talking about babies, and she was in the medical field, and she said that there's cells in the baby's body that do not leave the mother's body even after the birth, and that they find their way to the mother's heart. They kind of like settle. I mean, and we'll have to look at the video together, because I only saw it once or some time ago, but it really impressed me. And that, so they become part of the mother's body. Basically, they're cells from her body that are in your body. So even if you have a miscarriage, or if you had some other situation where the baby's no longer with you, that part of that baby is with you. Like I had a miscarriage between my two sons, and there's a part of that baby that's still with me, even though that child did not choose to, stay and live in this world. And so that's very interesting to me.
Yeah.
And I know that when I reach out on the level of consciousness, I can always find that soul.
Oh,
Like
wow.
I feel like,
Mhm.
that sweet being is still in this
Oh,
creation,
wow.
as part of my inner circle, even, it's interesting.
Mm. Oh,
So,
beautiful. Beautiful.
yeah,
This explains maybe why the bond, I mean, between mother and child is so strong, and also the
right,
love is just very different compared to any other love. And I shared this before, and I think it's just so interesting. So, because I always share when you go through the levels of consciousness, and then from Brahman onward, so when the human aspects are coming back in, then there's more the unconditional love present. So it's not like the human love before, but it's
right.
different with the baby. And I wasn't sure if that's gonna come in, but it is, and I'm so grateful for that love, to experience that love. And I think it's greater than any love I've ever experienced. But I can experience it, but not towards anybody else. Everybody's the same
It's
except the
okay,
child.
because the thing is, it changes you, right? You experience that love and it changes you.
Yeah.
And it changes you in a way that's extremely evolutionary, and that you needed to change in this lifetime. You chose this lifetime. I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to go through this change. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And yeah, I felt like I loved before I had my first child. But when I had my first child, he taught me a love that I didn't know before.
Wow.
He was
Yeah.
a great teacher, already just so little, and
Mm.
already teaching me so many things.
Yeah. Oh my God, so beautiful. Yeah. Dorothy, can you do a little
Oh,
healing for
yeah.
us? That would be so amazing.
Yeah,
Just for,
let's
I don't
do
know,
that.
10, 15 minutes, just something very, your healing is always so beautiful. So I know something very, very amazing is going to come up. So enjoy, everybody. I know it's going to be really, really beautiful.
Thank you,
So
Eva. Yes, let's do that. I usually start
thank
with
you.
a little prayer of gratitude.
Yes.
So I'll just do a little prayer and then we'll
Yeah.
dive into the healing.
Okay.
Thank you to the creator of the whole universe, of all the universes, the great, almighty, absolute God of gods. Thank you, thank you, thank you for making everything, for making us in a way that we can know you and we can fathom with our awareness, from the most superficial level of creation to the most abstract level of creation, and then to that gap, that relationship that exists within all of us between the unmanifest absolute ocean of being and the way it comes forth as the forms of the creation. And we can see those mechanics and understand and appreciate the mechanics by which that happens. It's so beautiful. And in this healing, may we use that perception and understanding to support greater health for everybody here, everybody watching. May every moment of this healing be precious and valuable, golden. May it be golden, filled with the uncreated light of divine grace and love. Thank you, everyone, for being with me. Thank you so much. Thank you to God. Thank you. Thank you. Amen. So I like to tell you the mechanics when the healing is happening. The awareness settles down, and the first place that it settles is in the core of the heart. There is the nervous system in the chest center, has this ability to monitor the very fine energy fluctuations that occur within the entire field of creation. And that are particularly occurring right here, right now, around us as we sit together for this healing. And if you sit when the video uploads in a couple of weeks, no worries, because we're all still in this place. It's really beyond time and space, but it is that present self, that present moment. And to be able to like directly experience and process and understand the nature of those shifts that are happening. And I'm seeing an opening of the meridians between the heart center up to the temporal cortex. So the temporal cortex is the area just behind the ears, up in the brain. And the inferior temporal cortex is the memory center of the being and the body. So there's a very nice connection right there. There's like an opening. Awareness is present, right? It's present from the core of the chest up through this area behind the ears, inside. And the uncreated light of God's love shines from the center of the heart up into the hippocampus on both sides of the head, right and left. That's the name of the part that's the memory center. At the same time, the astral body activates the cords of light and awareness that connect us into the entire web of life, sit as the seed or the core of the location where this healing is actually taking place. So first we start by talking a little bit about the body, but then we realize, oh, well, the healing is actually taking place at this much more noetic level, much deeper, more abstract level of the physiology. And there, the cords of consciousness that are like meridians that run through the entire field of creation connect back not just to early parts of this lifetime, but also back to past incarnations. And interesting, we talk so much about little children in this particular episode. But going back into that critical moment when the little child self has to make the choice or decision to stay or to leave. Back, it usually happens around between ages 2.5 to 4, somewhere in there. Because that's when the brain explodes and starts really taking in a lot of information. You start to realize how much you're up against in this world. We said this is critical moment of like, oh, wow, I really bit something off here, didn't I? I bit off a big bite with this lifetime. And what's infusing into that. Anyway, we go back to those early moments, that deep, delicate time when the choice or decision had to be made to stay in this world, and the dawning of the understanding of how much we've taken on as souls to take responsibility for a human lifetime. And the grief, the heart always feels grief at that moment. So we're just going back to that moment and offering the connection to wholeness, offering awakening, because right now we're already through to the other end of the picture, right? So we can go back and say, you made it. It turned out okay in the end, right? So we offer this witnessing of that moment when the child realizes that they bit off something really big and that the human lifetime is not for the faint of heart. And providing that intimate connection between the human heart and the heart of the divine, which is eternal and infinite, whose love is unconditional and based on full recognition and understanding of your potential as a being. The potential has an energy signature. Even back then, it's so abstract. But because the energy signature is so robust, because it is offered directly from heart to heart of the creator and you as an individual person, it carries all sorts of beautiful details and nuance and understanding. And what I'm seeing happening is in the astral body, there are a lot of meridians and threads that connect to previous incarnations where the intentions of the lifetime didn't unfold as completely or satisfactorily as might have been hoped. And those lifetimes left impressions and memory patterns. And so the impressions and memory patterns end up carrying forth into this lifetime. So we're actually looking at that memory center in the little child head. And the memories and impressions are being held in perspective. that they are the motivations and the tools that guide choices and decisions in this lifetime toward greater success, to the higher goal. They guide choices and decisions in this lifetime to favor consciousness over matter, to favor the measures and the recognition of what is valuable from the perspective of divinity, from the perspective of God, over and above material metrics. This world will give you a lot of ways to measure your success, a lot. But the measure of heaven is love. How much love did you create in this world? How much was expanded? How much of that infinite, boundless love and recognition expanded in this world through the instrument of this physiology and this being? None of the other metrics come close. So there, because this happens around the age 3 or 4, parents start imposing boundaries and limitations, and we know that we have to conform and we have to do certain things. And if I do this, mama seems to be proud of me and smiles and claps and applauds and rejoices in me. And if I do this other thing, mama does not seem to be too happy about that. So we start already at such a young age adopting measures that become the foundation of beliefs and judgments and expectations that we hold on ourselves. You are precious because you exist. Existence is the measure of value of a human being. God knows that the human lifetime is not easy. God knows it's not easy. God knows that we have to mature. So much love and comfort is flowing from the heart to the little child self, embracing and holding that little child self in a heart of gold, in a heart of pure love, as throughout the entire course of the entire lifetime, we are held in the lap of God. And that foundation, here we've come, here I explain the mechanics, here we've come to the foundational contextual structure in which all material thoughts and forms and feelings and experiences are contained. That context is the security and the sweetness, the recognition, and the boundless unconditional love of the divine. It becomes the kingpin or the center for the changes, particularly the purification. Because when we shift, we make a shift to that underlying context, right? It becomes closer and more intimate, more directly connected with the divine, with God. When that happens, certain attachments just have to fall away, because we do still have attachments to leaning into those material metrics. It's not that we stop being successful in the world. It's that the success rides on the foundation of power and resource that comes directly through the relationship with absolute infinite being, divinity in its highest form. So those achievements, the future achievements, the ones that we're moving into, exceed and accelerate past anything we might have thought that we could achieve. It's that the attachments to pleasing authority figures, and particularly, and this is happening for the little child self also, any time or place within the history of this lifetime or past lifetimes where we gave the authority to some bigger, more important person to define who and what we are for ourselves, to define us. Nobody defines you. Even if you're a tiny infinite, you are defined through your relationship with God, period. Period. God knows you. God knows you completely. Every life you've ever lived, every experience you've ever had, every reaction you've ever had, God knows it all and adores unconditionally. So all this process of looking to others and expecting someone else to tell me whether I'm lovable or not. Every time that's happened within the course, this is happening down at the causal and astral levels of the body. Those threads that beam out from the astral body are going back, and they're kind of gathering up and collecting every moment of the past where one gave one's power away, power of self-definition away to anyone or anything. Sometimes it's a job. Somebody asks you, "Oh, yeah, who are you? What do you do?" And you say, "Well, I work for the government or something." It's like the job defines you. No, the job does not define you. God's love defines you. The job is just a job. It's just on the surface. It's just what you happen to be doing at the moment. All those times, all those points, all of them, they're gathered, they're gathered, they're gathered, they're gathering up and forming into a kind of structure in the astral body. And then they travel back to the source of creation. They're just given. They're given like a gift, offered like flowers at the feet of God's grace and love. Oh God, I was holding all of these. Now I give them to you. You define me. You define me, God. Nobody else defines. And the key, the pattern, the habit, right? Memory patterns and impressions. Again, this is some clearing that takes place in the inferior temporal cortex that allows you to restructure habits and patterns when you're not sure or when something doesn't go the way you were expecting it. We don't look to others to define whether we are successful or not. We look deep, deep into that precious, eternal relationship that transcends all lifetimes and all relationships. We look to that relationship to help define what's going on. If one has a desire and you wanted something, but you didn't get it, then we look back to that relationship and a solution comes because the source of creation, the divine, is the source of all answers to all problems, all wisdom, all material resources, all blessings. It's just establishing and establishing. This establishes flexibility and stability simultaneously in the entire neural network around the heart center and up into the head center. And I'm seeing it also going down into the belly, into the Basti Mahamarma. It's a Vedic term. There are all these big three Mahamarmas, one in the head, one in the heart, and one in the gut. And in these three, we're shifting the pattern of behavior to always seek the highest first. We always seek to the highest. Oh, something didn't go well. Oh, this situation is overwhelming me. Then we seek to the highest first. And then everything else that comes, people have their opinions. And when people love you, sometimes their opinions are golden, right? Sometimes their opinions are really, really helpful. Sometimes they speak the light of God to you right when you needed it. So it's not that we reject the opinions of others, but we are discerning. And we use the relationship with divinity as a baseline to help inform our analysis and synthesis of the definitions that come to us, of the ways this world defines us as individuals. We don't have to accept definitions that are corrupt and damaging. We just pray for that person. Just pray for them. So a deep, sweet prayer of gratitude and appreciation that goes from the heart center to the source of creation, and then through us to all those people that we gave our power to, that we gave them the responsibility to let us know if we were beloved or not, if we were important or not, if we were valuable or not. It's too much responsibility to give another person. So asking their forgiveness and letting them know that they are also loved unconditionally. Once you own that unconditional love and life resides in the lap of God, then all else unfolds in the highest, most profound, and wonderful life-supporting way. Health, relationships, spiritual development, opportunities for growth in the material world, all of it. May it be better for everyone. May for all of us, we never give that key away to anyone again, just between ourselves and the divine. So simple, so easy. You never lose the key when it's there. You can't lose it then. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to everyone. Thank you for being with me. It's so sweet.
Thank you so much, Dorothy. Oh my God, that was so beautiful. Honestly, this was such a strong healing and such an important one because I know like everybody's carrying that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Ah,
It kind of comes with the territory, doesn't it? It's like
yes.
the way the child grows up in a world where
Yeah.
they're surrounded by teachers and parents
Mm,
and older kids and everybody, and everybody tells them everything, and then they start to, and that's a trap that parents can get into is, well, if I let my love flow freely to my child, um, and when they're doing what I want them to do, and then I retract my love when they're not doing what I want them to do, then they start only looking to the parents. It's a powerful way to control a child, but it's not kind. The unconditional love needs to be always present, even when the child is not doing what you want them to do. The unconditional love has to be there. And it's more like then you're guiding them, then you're just guiding them. Oh,
mm,
the situation isn't working the way we want it to work. How can it work better? What can we do? We're going to work together and make it better. That's all.
mm.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I really felt like everything you shared. So in the work in the heart, and then especially in the head, when you went back to that, when this was basically programmed. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I really felt then like it's lit up and yeah, expanded. It was really beautiful.
Nice.
So powerful. Thank you so much, Dorothy. Honestly, I
Thank
love
you,
your
Eva.
healings. Thank you so
Oh, it
much
was
for
so
yeah.
lovely to be together. Thank you for giving me your time. I know how precious your time is, Eva. So bless you, and thank you so much
Yeah,
for
thank you so
being
much
here and
for
inviting
being
me on the show.
yeah, yeah.
Pardon?
Thank you so much for being here. Like it's so beautiful that you with us and we had this amazing conversation and I learned so much. So thank you. It was so interesting and so lovely just to chat. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sweetheart. I
Yeah.
think we're doing something really good.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
it's
then
good.
I
We're doing
just
it together, Eva. We're doing it together.
yeah, yeah, and this is something that's so important to me. Teamwork or connection. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. And I think it's like the word of the day because that's what we're also seeing in the big transformation in America right now.
Mm, yeah.
It's like we're leveraging higher laws of nature around the process of working together collectively as a team.
Mm, yeah.
It's
I mean, I,
important.
I think the outcome will be amazing of that because it's always beautiful to connect and we learn from each other and we receive as well. It strengthens us as well in certain ways. So it's yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And I think it's like essential for the survival of the species. It's like the next step of our evolution that we need to come into. And it will affect our nervous systems, and our nervous systems will become more refined and will become wiser. And it's going to be really, really nice. It's going to be so nice.
Yeah. That
It's
sounds
a bright
great.
future. It's a bright
Yeah.
future.
Yeah, I totally agree. The future is bright. Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Thank you,
Okay,
darling.
thank you again, Dorothy. Thank you so much. And also thank you everybody who listened in. Thank you. That was very amazing. Thank you that you were here. And yeah, so that's it.
Right.
All
See you
right.
soon. Bye
Bye.
bye.
Okay.